Good afternoon, and what a splendid day outside at the NYBG, and what gardener wouldn't be light in spirit coming inside to remember Frank on such a day. It's wonderful to be back with friends and mentors of mine from gardens past and present, and hopefully gardens future as well, and to the family of Frank Cabot, to Ann and his children and grandchildren, and to the Garden Conservancy at large. It's a tremendous honor for me personally to remember a man who so profoundly in his time, and that will continue, changed the subject, changed the substance and the fabric of the American garden. I'm going to begin at the ending in remembering Frank in our last meeting at Les Quatre Vents. My fellow guests on that day and my partner Robert and I were horse-drawn through the property. Ann was at the reins and Frank was riding shotgun, if I remember correctly. We stopped on occasion on that day to pick chanterelle mushrooms. I remember doing that quite greedily because they were in such exuberance, and we watched the local berry pickers. It was a blue, crisp, early autumn's day. They'll remain burned in my memory. And Frank and I noted with mutual excitement the munificent populations of native plants that grew on his property that he shepherded and safeguarded. Enviable stands of Cypripedium remain there, again, burned in my memory. It was during that last visit with him in that late August that I took away a moment that is yet to diminish in my memory. In fact, it's one that continues to become stronger as I mature as a gardener / person. And it once brings to the realization at that moment of the passion that Frank possessed for the mysteries and the miracles so craftily cradled within the natural world, and which he felt very, very deeply and profoundly. Tony Robbins said that in passion is the genesis of genius. Indeed, it's an enviable thing, the possession of a passion. Many of us possess it, this amorphous but palpable spiritual connection with something. However, I don't believe it's something that can be inherited, nor studied, nor purchased. Passion simply appears, quite magically, like a seedling oak from an acorn, once buried, on deliberately, and then forgotten. And how I wish on that day, at that moment, that still stays put so well deep inside me, that I would have had the presence to ask him when it was that he had discovered that sapling within himself, and how he had come to cultivate it and polish it, in the process, alter the way we look at gardens. There is no passion to be found plain small in settling for life that is less than one you are capable of living. Nelson Mandela said that, and I'll paraphrase it in my Northern Michigan Lutheran lexicon, go big or go home. The embrace of plants and good horticulture at Stonecrop was big, and it became the standard of what a good garden could be. In my inaugural visit there, it permanently altered my personal charts. Heronswood, which was my first garden in Washington State, was more adventurous in plants, while attempting to be more precise because of witnessing at Stonecrop an adherence to the principles of not so much the desires of the gardener, but the wants and the needs of the plants in the garden. Gunras in wooden boxes. I'll never forget that. And then at Les Quatre Vents, in its play and steady pursuit of good garden plants appropriate to the climate It continues to guide me in the creation of my second garden called Wyncliffe. I regret that Frank could never visit it, and I hope that you and your children know that you're always welcome to, and I would love to show you around and show you some of the inspirations that came from the Conservancy at a much smaller scale. No singing frogs, no pigeon air, but I do have 9 exercise balls hanging from a vine maple, which I think Frank would appreciate. But at the same time, I remain somewhat grateful that I never experienced his third undertaking, the ranch in New Zealand, as my lower back had grown weary of the inspirations that he instigated within me. But back to that moment that I've alluded to at the end of my last visit, with which I began this account. We had walked into a deep, wonderful, cool ravine near the Japanese pavilion through a heady inventory of perfectly cultivated plants. And along the trail was a lily, Lilium nepalens. It's a species that I had previously collected by seed in eastern Nepal, with exquisite primrose yellow reflex tepals. And Frank stopped in front of me and gently stooped over and lifted that flower upwards to perhaps study more carefully the intricate markings on the inside, deep burgundy centers with nectar guides. Or maybe it was to better appreciate the fragrance that it emitted. And I thought for just a moment that there was a point to his gesture, that he was reminding me of the relationship I had with this plant in the past, or perhaps, as I'm too often known to do when I'm leading guests through my own garden, pausing right next to the most beautifully grown cabbage in the world, or that expanse of blue poppies, so people could feel slightly bad about themselves in their abilities to garden. And I looked to Frank's face at this moment, and that was not there at all. He was alone in that moment, seeing the universe in a single flower. With the actualization of a gardener, that we must grasp the seconds of fleeting perfection in our gardens as they happen and unfold, as they too quickly evaporate. There are many things that I learned from Frank in spending time with him, reading his words, listening to him speak, but that moment of true plantsmanship melded with a passion for life and living will remain the most important. Thank you very much.